within the mountains of Gifu Prefecture. There is a place that appears on no modern map. A forgotten village once known as Yurei-mura. Local hunters whisper that sometimes, when the fog grows too thick, you can see old lanterns glowing among the trees, and hear a distant bell calling from nowhere. They say the village vanished nearly a century ago, swallowed by the forest after a failed ritual. But once every 100 years, when a lost soul remembers its name, the village returns and calls them home. And once you find the village, you must never look back. Chapter 1. The Curse of the Old Map. It was a rainy afternoon in Nagoya when Riku Aizawa took shelter in a narrow alley in Nakaku. The wind whistled through the rows of old tile roofs, rattling a faded wooden sign that read, Kodouguya Furukawa Antiques. Riku, a third-year archaeology student, had only intended to find a few old artifacts for his research project. But among the piles of broken clocks, eyeless Daruma dolls, and stacks of old woodblock prints, something made him stop. An old hand-drawn map of Japan, yellowed with age, framed under a layer of dusty glass. Meiji era, the shopkeeper rasped, drawn by hand, you won't find another like it. The map clearly showed the borders of Gifu Prefecture, in the Hida mountain region, a place Riku had once visited for fieldwork. But in the middle of the forest, there was a faint dotted line leading to a small red mark labeled simply, Kun-mura, village. Someone had crossed it out with thick black ink. Does this village still exist? Riku asked. The old man smiled, a thin, uneasy smile. They say the village never disappeared. He whispered, it's just the map that forgot it. Riku laughed quietly, thinking it was just a sales gimmick. He paid for the map, folded it, and didn't notice that the shopkeeper was murmuring something in an ancient dialect as he left. That night, back in his small apartment, Riku spread the map across his desk. He snapped a photo and tried to locate the same spot on Google Maps. No matter how much he zoomed in, the road leading to the village never appeared. Instead, the app closed itself, the screen went black, and the GPS flashed, location not found. The desk lamp flickered and died. A cold draft slipped through the window, blowing the map off the table. When Riku bent to pick it up, he froze. A dark stain shaped like a human hand had appeared on the corner of the paper. He switched the light back on, but everything looked normal again. Only his own hand was trembling. He folded the map and locked it in his drawer. That night, Riku dreamt of standing in a fog-covered forest, hearing 3 distant bell chimes, echoing through the mist. Ahead of him stood an ancient gate with a weathered sign. Greater than, Welcome to Yurei-mura, the village no one leaves. The next morning, he woke up to find the map lying open on his desk. Even though he clearly remembered locking it away, the dark handprint had vanished. But a thin new path had been drawn, leading straight to the red village mark. Below it, in fresh ink, someone had written, Greater than, when you find the village, don't look back. Chapter 2. The Road That Doesn't Exist. 3 days after that strange dream, Riku couldn't stop thinking about the map. He brought it to the university library and compared it to official topographic charts of Gifu Prefecture. The result made his skin crawl. The area where the village was marked appeared completely blank. No roads, no rivers, no forest, just a white void. Curiosity overpowered reason. Riku told his 2 closest friends, Hana Takeda, an anthropology major fascinated by folklore, and Toru Mishima, a film student with a taste for the paranormal. Hana's eyes lit up. Greater than, maybe it's an abandoned settlement, or a ghost village, we have to see it. Toru laughed nervously. Greater than, you two and your ghost hunts. Fine, but if we find anything, I'm filming it. The next morning, they set off in Toru's car toward the mountains of Hida. As they climbed higher, fog rolled in, thick, heavy, and silent. Cell service dropped to a single bar, then nothing. The GPS arrow blinked uncertainly, flickering as if breathing. The last road sign read, Route Gifu 47 road closed beyond this point. But on Riku's old map, the same road extended a few more kilometers, ending right at the red mark of the lost village. Greater than, if the village is real, Riku said quietly. It should be just beyond that ridge. Toru nodded and turned the wheel onto a narrow dirt path. The deeper they went, the worse the road became. Trees pressed close on both sides, branches scraping the car like fingernails. Then, without warning, the sound of the engine vanished. Not stalled, simply gone. No birds, no wind, no breath. Only a silence so complete it felt alive. Hana whispered. Greater than, do you feel like something's watching us? In the rearview mirror, Toru saw it. A figure in a white kimono, standing in the middle of the path behind them, motionless, head bowed. He spun around. Nothing there. They drove on, slowly. After a few more bends, the dirt road abruptly ended. Ahead lay a wall of fog and forest. And the GPS screen glowed with the message, no route. Position error. Toru killed the engine, turned around. But the road behind them was gone too. In its place stood a dense wall of trees, as though the path had never existed. Riku's voice trembled. Greater than, that's impossible, we just came from there. They got out, hoping to retrace their steps on foot. The forest was eerily still, the air smelled of wet moss and rust. After a few meters, Riku's shoe struck something buried in the dirt. He knelt and brushed away the moss. It was an old wooden sign, almost swallowed by the earth. Scratched into it were faint characters. Greater than, Kokokarasaki, Michiwa nai from here on. There is no road. A cold wind swept through, carrying with it the distant sound of a bell. Soft, echoing through the fog. 3 times it rang, clear and hollow. Then stopped. As the mist thinned for a brief moment, Riku saw, deep within the forest, a narrow wooden bridge, half-rotted, spanning a small stream. Beyond the bridge, he could just make out the rooftops of a village. Hana whispered. Greater than, it's real, the village is real. Riku turned once more toward the way they came, nothing but white mist. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the bridge. Each plank creaked beneath his feet like a dying breath. When they reached the other side, the sound of the world vanished again. No wind. No birds. Not even the sound of their own heartbeat. And then, for the first time, the bell rang a 4th time. Chapter 3. The Bell in the Mist. The bridge behind them slowly vanished into the fog, as if it had never existed. No one spoke. The air was thick, damp, and filled with the smell of decaying wood. Somewhere far off, water dripped rhythmically, but even that sound felt wrong. Ahead stretched a dirt path winding through a cluster of wooden houses. Their thatched roofs sagged, the paper doors half open. And yet, dim lights glowed inside, as though someone still lived there. Toru tried to joke, but his voice quivered. Greater than, maybe, someone's here shooting a movie. Who lights lanterns in a dead village? Hana gripped Riku's hand tightly. Each step deeper into the fog made the world quieter. Then, without warning, a bell rang. Not loud, soft, resonant, but freezing. The sound rolled through the mist like the breath of the dead. Each chime heavier than the last. With every echo, the air grew colder. Their skin prickled. There must be a shrine nearby, Riku said, forcing calm. They followed the sound. The fog grew thicker, swirling around them like smoke. Toru's flashlight beam stretched only a few feet before it seemed to drown in the mist. Finally, they saw it. A large bronze bell hanging in the middle of an open clearing. But with no temple, no pillar, no roof. It was suspended by a red rope that disappeared into the darkness. Hana's voice was barely a whisper. Greater than, who would hang a bell here? Riku stepped forward, touching the rope. It was ice cold and damp, as if soaked in blood. When he let go, the rope swayed gently, and the bell began to ring on its own. The sound didn't travel outward. It echoed inside their heads. Hundreds of voices breathing in unison, whispering too close. Riku stumbled, dizzy. And then, he saw her. Dash dash dash. Through the swirling fog stood a woman in a white kimono. Her long black hair dripping wet, her face hidden. Bare feet stained dark. She didn't move. She just stood there, head bowed, listening. Hana's voice shook. Greater than, who are you? The woman didn't answer. The bell chimed again, louder. And this time, the sound came from within their chests. Toru panicked, raised his flashlight, and shone it toward her. The beam hit empty space. The woman was gone. Only a trail of wet footprints led to a nearby house. Dash dash dash. They followed the prints to a sliding door left slightly open. A faint, sweet, rotting smell drifted out. Inside, everything was frozen in time. A low table, an altar, and a black and white photograph of a young girl in kimono. In front of the picture sat 3 bowls of rice, each with chopsticks stabbed upright. Toru reached toward the bowls. Hana screamed. Greater than, don't touch them. At that moment, the flashlight went out. Darkness swallowed the room. From somewhere behind them came the sound of wet footsteps, slow and deliberate. Then a woman's voice whispered right beside Riku's ear, cold and hollow. Greater than, why have you come here? Dash dash dash. The light flickered back. The room was empty. Only the window now stood ajar. And the red rope hanging from the altar swayed gently. Riku stepped closer. Tied to the rope was a wooden tag, ink faded by age. He leaned in to read it. The writing said, greater than, if you hear the bell a 4th time, it's already too late. Dash dash dash. Outside, the bell rang. For the 4th time, Chapter 4, The Missing Photograph. After the 4th bell, none of them spoke. They fled the house, their hearts pounding, lungs tight. The fog had thickened, so dense the flashlight could barely cut through it. Yet behind them, they could still hear something walking. Its steps echoing softly in rhythm with theirs. Dash dash dash. They found shelter in a larger wooden house, one that seemed to have once belonged to the village headman. The walls were rotting, but inside, everything remained in place. The tatami mats, an old sake bottle, a low table covered in dust. Hana raised her light to the wall and gasped. There were dozens of framed black and white photos hanging there. Men, women, children, all dressed in old festival clothes, standing proudly in front of a shrine. But in every single picture, the faces were gone. Each head was a blank blur, as if someone had scraped the faces off with a blade. Toru tried to rationalize it. Greater than, probably just mold or damage. Riku shook his head slowly. Greater than, no. Look, every face is erased perfectly. Not the rest. Someone did this deliberately. Dash dash dash. Toru, being a film student, pulled his vintage film camera from his bag. He tried to lighten the tension with a nervous grin. Greater than, if the stories are true, maybe I'll catch something on film. Proof sells, right? He began taking pictures, the altar, the hallway, the photos. Then, as Riku and Hana inspected a wooden chest, Toru turned toward the window. Through the mist, something moved. He froze. Looking through the camera's viewfinder, he saw a woman in a white kimono standing in the dirt road outside. Her hair hung wet over her face, her body unnaturally still. Exactly the same woman they'd seen earlier. He pressed the shutter. Once, twice. On the 3rd frame, the woman lifted her head. Lightning flashed, and through the lens, Toru saw her eyes. Completely black, no pupils, no whites. Just 2 pits of darkness staring straight into him. He stumbled backward, the camera slipping from his hands. When he looked up again, she was gone. Only a wet handprint glistened on the window glass, slowly fading. Dash dash dash. Hana rushed over. Greater than, Toru, are you okay? He nodded shakily. Greater than, I got her, on film. She looked right at me. Dash dash dash. Morning came, pale and gray. Toru was hunched over his portable film kit, traying the negatives carefully. The sharp smell of chemicals filled the air. Riku and Hana waited in silence, every creak of the house making them flinch. When the first strip of film appeared, Toru held it up to the light. Every photo developed clearly. Except one. The shot of the woman was completely blank. No mist, no figure, nothing. But behind them, behind the three friends, a line of shadowy faces filled the frame. Dozens of them. Faint, eyeless, and smiling. Toru dropped the film in horror. Greater than, I only photographed one person. Riku picked it up, squinting. Among the blurred faces, one was strangely clear. Hana's. But her eyes in the photo were black, just like the woman in the kimono. Hana froze, her breath catching. Greater than, no, that can't be me. Then the bell rang again. A single, deep tone. From somewhere inside the house. The door to the darkroom creaked open slowly. No wind, no reason, just the sound. Footsteps, wet, close. And then, standing in the doorway, the woman in the white kimono held the camera in her hand. Chapter 5. The hand on her shoulder. The horror begins to touch the living. The house was silent. Only the sound of dripping water from the leaky roof. Tap, tap, tap. The woman in the white kimono stood at the doorway, holding Toru's camera, her head slightly tilted. The weak light flickered across her face. Skin pale like wax, lips bluish, eyes sunken and black. Her wet hair clung to her shoulders, drops of water falling to the floor one by one. Toru froze. Riku stepped back, and Hana clutched his arm so tightly her nails broke skin. The woman raised the camera to her face. Click. No flash. No light. But every lamp in the room died at once. Then came the faint sound of a film reel winding, followed by the soft clatter of something falling to the floor. When the lights came back on, the woman was gone. The camera lay shattered in the center of the room. A strip of unexposed film had been pulled out. And on it, already visible, was the image of a wet, white hand. The hand was small but twisted, its fingers long and thin, nails blackened. Across its palm, written in fresh red ink, were trembling words. Greater than, you must not leave the village. Toru threw the camera aside, shouting. Greater than, we have to go. This place, this isn't human. Hana's voice trembled. Greater than, but where? The bridge is gone, we're trapped. Riku looked through the window, only fog and the faint outlines of houses. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew. The bridge had vanished. Night fell. They gathered around a dim oil lamp. Toru sat by the door, hugging his knees, staring into the dark. Hana lay slumped over the table, asleep from exhaustion. Riku sat opposite her, holding the lamp, too afraid to close his eyes. Outside, the fog turned darker, almost black. Then came a soft sigh from the window. Riku rose, lamp in hand. The window was shut, yet a wet handprint pressed against the glass. Water trickled down, forming a thin stream, dripping onto Hana's shoulder. Riku lunged forward, grabbing her just in time. She gasped, because a white hand was resting on her shoulder. It wasn't his, and it wasn't Toru's. The hand was cold, wet, and boneless, its fingers long like seaweed. Hana screamed. Riku snatched a brush from the table and struck it hard. The hand vanished into mist, leaving only a smear of black water across the tatami. When the lamp light steadied again, Hana's shoulder was marked. A bruise shaped like a hand, dark as ink. She sobbed, trembling. Greater than, I heard her voice, inside my head. She said I am the chosen one. Riku shouted. Greater than, don't listen. It's not real. But Toru was staring blankly out the window. Greater than, it's real. He whispered, I saw them out there. Dozens of them, just standing, watching. Riku turned off the lamp. The three peered through the narrow slit in the paper door. Outside, rows of shadowy figures stood motionless in the mist. Men, women, children, all in ancient clothes. Their pale faces turned toward the house. None moved. None spoke. Then came a thud. The rice bowl on the table rolled off and shattered. When Riku looked down, water had spread across the floor, forming words. Greater than, one must stay. 4 chimes are not enough. Dash dash dash. Toru's voice was barely a whisper. Greater than, 4. But we've already heard 4. Why isn't it enough? Riku didn't answer. Hana bowed her head, clutching her bruised shoulder. From beneath her sleeve, black water began to seep out, drop by drop. She shivered and whispered. Greater than, I can hear the bell, inside me. Chapter 6. The Record of the Last Villager. Night felt endless. The bell inside Hana still pulsed faintly, beating in rhythm with her heart. Riku kept watch while Toru tried to light a small fire. But the flame wouldn't catch. The smoke curled upward, then vanished like it was swallowed by the air. The village was utterly silent. The kind of silence that doesn't belong to the living. Dash dash dash. At dawn, they left the house to search for a way out. The fog had lifted just enough to reveal a stone path leading deeper into the woods. At the end of it stood a moss-covered shrine, half buried among trees. Above the gate, a wooden plaque hung crookedly, its faded characters barely legible. Greater than, Inorino Yashiro, the shrine of the final prayer. Hana stepped forward first. Inside, dust and cobwebs blanketed everything. The statue of Kanon was cracked, its face eroded by time. On a small wooden shelf lay a leather-bound notebook, old and warped by dampness, as if waiting to be found. Hana picked it up, opened the first page, and gasped. The words were written in dark red ink. Greater than, I am the last one left in this village. Dash dash dash. The handwriting wavered across the next few pages. Frantic, heavy, as if written by trembling hands. Greater than, September 23rd. They say the bell keeps us alive. But I know it keeps our souls from leaving. When the bell stops, the sun will not rise. Hana's hands shook as she read aloud. Riku and Toru listened in silence, faces pale. Greater than, September 24th. The child for the sacrifice did not wake up today. Her blood made the bell ring all night. The elder said to bury her beneath the bridge, so the river would carry our prayers to the mountain god. But I saw, the water didn't flow toward the mountain. It flowed into the ground. Hana whispered. Greater than, that must be, the little girl we saw in that wooden box. Riku nodded grimly. He turned another page. Greater than, September 26th. They said the 4th chime would seal the girl's soul. But when the bell rang, darkness fell upon the village. The people laughed, then fell one by one. I ran to the shrine. I didn't dare look back. A droplet hit the page. It wasn't rain. It was water dripping from Hana's hair, though no rain had fallen. Dash dash dash. Riku took the notebook gently from her hands and read the final line. Greater than, if anyone finds this, take the map and leave. Do not awaken the 4th bell. For when it rings, this village will cease to be human. At that moment, the bell rang again. Not from afar. From directly beneath the shrine. The Kanon statue began to tremble. A crack split across its face. And from the fissure, black water seeped out, snaking toward their feet. Riku pulled Hana and Toru toward the door. But when he grabbed the handle, the door slammed shut from the outside. They were trapped. The bell's sound grew louder, vibrating in their bones. Hana screamed, clutching her head. Through the rising darkness, Riku saw her. The woman in the white kimono, standing behind the altar. Eyes black and endless, lips moving without sound. Greater than, I told you, never look back. Dash dash dash. Toru rammed his shoulder against the door, once, twice, until it burst open. They stumbled out, falling onto the muddy ground outside. When they turned back, the shrine was gone. Only the bare earth remained. And the notebook lay half buried in the mud. The pages fluttered open by the wind. revealing a new line written in fresh red ink. Greater than, they have returned. Chapter 7. The Night Without Dawn. They ran until their lungs burned. Until the ringing of the bell faded into silence. Finally, they stopped on a dirt path, gasping for breath, their faces pale and wet with sweat. The sky above was the color of ash. Dim, heavy, without a sun. Though Riku's watch showed it was past 8 in the morning. The night refused to end. Greater than, why is it still dark? Toru whispered. The sun should have risen hours ago. Hana's eyes were hollow. Greater than, maybe, the sun doesn't rise here. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it a faint smell of smoke. They turned. In the distance, the houses of the village that had been dark the night before were now lit from within by flickering yellow light. Through the fog, they could see silhouettes moving inside. Dash dash dash. Someone's alive, Riku murmured, half hope, half fear. They approached one of the houses cautiously. The door was slightly open. And a hoarse, muffled voice drifted from inside. Greater than, dinner is served. Don't let it go cold. Hana pushed the door gently. Inside, a family of 4 sat around a low table. Their backs straight, their hands holding chopsticks. But no one moved. The rice bowls before them were full, each with chopsticks planted straight into the center. Riku's voice cracked. Greater than, are they, the villagers? As he stepped closer, the woman at the head of the table slowly lifted her face. Her skin was dry as parchment, her eyes sunken, but her lips curved into a warped smile. Greater than, the rice is cold now. Riku stumbled back. The man beside her turned his head, a full 180 degrees. His neck snapping audibly as he grinned. Greater than, it's time for the bell. Dash dash dash. Toru screamed and dragged them out of the house. But when they looked up, every house in the village was glowing with light. And from each doorway, people began to step out. Dozens, then hundreds of them. Men, women, children, all wearing old ceremonial clothes. Faces pale, eyes empty. Moving silently toward the center of the village, toward the vanished shrine. Hana whispered. Greater than, where are they going? Riku's gaze fixed on the figure leading them. The woman in the white kimono. She held a red rope tied to a massive bell. And each time she pulled it, the bell rang. Not into the air, but straight into the hearts of the living. Riku felt his chest tighten, his heartbeat falter. Toru fell to his knees, clutching his head. Greater than, the sound, it's pulling me. Dash dash dash. Hana screamed. Greater than, don't listen. Cover your ears. She dragged Riku away, but his feet felt heavier with every step. He looked down, his shadow wasn't moving with him. It stood perfectly still. Then, slowly, his shadow turned to face him. Riku froze. The shadow smiled and whispered with his own voice. Greater than, stay. The night won't pass anyway. Dash dash dash. They finally found refuge in an abandoned house near the edge of the village. Toru collapsed, breathing heavily, sweat pouring down his face. Greater than, I saw them. He gasped. They all went into the shrine. None came back. Riku glanced at the notebook still clutched in his hand. The same one they'd found at the shrine. But now the final page had changed. The ink was fresh and red again, spelling new words. Greater than, when the village wakes, dawn will never come. And those who witness it will no longer be human. Dash dash dash. Outside, the bell tolled once more. This time, not 4, but 5 chimes. The sound was deeper, longer, stretching the air itself, making the walls tremble and the window panes rattle. Hana clamped her hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. Greater than, I can hear them calling my name. Riku grabbed her shoulders, shouting. Greater than, it's not real. Don't listen. But when she looked up at him, Riku froze. In Hana's eyes, reflected like glass, stood the woman in the white kimono. Right behind him, Chapter 8, The Forgotten Sacrifice. The 5th bell still echoed long after it faded. The air was heavy, not with sound, but with something alive, breathing between heartbeats. Riku turned sharply, but there was nothing behind him. Only cold, wet air brushing his neck, like someone had just exhaled there. Hana crouched on the floor, trembling, her hands pressed over her ears. Inside her head, the woman's voice whispered again and again. Soft, mournful, yet filled with something cruel. Greater than, don't leave, the ritual isn't complete, the blood isn't enough. Toru switched on his flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the dark. They were standing inside an old temple, its walls blackened with age. At the center was a low wooden altar draped in white cloth. On top of it sat a small wooden box, carved with a single kanji, gong, offering. Riku hesitated, then slowly lifted the lid. A sweet, rotten smell seeped out, damp, metallic, faintly like dried blood. Inside was the mummified body of a young girl, no older than 8. Dressed in a white kimono, her tiny hands folded at her chest. Her face was almost peaceful, or perhaps resigned. Underneath her robes was a piece of paper, yellow and brittle. Hana's voice trembled as she read. Greater than, to keep the village from disappearing. I offer my firstborn daughter. To guard the gate between two worlds. When her blood dries, the village will sleep. When it flows again, the village will awaken. No one spoke. The air in the temple shifted, every flicker of the flashlight cast too many shadows. The white cloth on the altar moved slightly, as if something beneath it was breathing. Toru stumbled back. Greater than, oh God, this was real? They actually did it? Riku's face was pale. Greater than, the notebook, it mentioned her. They sacrificed the child to keep the village's spirit from fading away. Hana stared at the girl's face. A single tear fell from her chin, landing on the small corpse. And at that moment, the girl's eyes opened. They were pitch black, deep and endless. Hana screamed and fell back. Toru grabbed her arm. But when his hand touched her, black liquid began to seep from the corpse's eyes, dripping onto his wrist. The liquid didn't fall. It crawled upward, against gravity, sliding across his skin like living veins of ink. Toru cried out, trying to shake it off. But the veins spread under his skin, forming ancient characters that burned faintly red. Hana sobbed. Greater than, she's inside him. Riku yanked the white cloth over the box, slamming the lid shut. The bell above them stopped ringing. A suffocating silence filled the room. Even their breathing sounded distant. After a long moment, Toru gasped for air. He lifted his head, eyes hollow, voice hoarse. Greater than, I see it now, the night of the sacrifice. They were happy. They thought giving up the girl would save everyone. But when the bell rang the 4th time, her soul didn't rise to the mountain. It came back. And it took the whole village with it. Hana's tears streamed down her cheeks. Greater than, so, they all died together? Toru smiled faintly, a smile that wasn't his. Greater than, no. They didn't die. They're still here, waiting for someone to replace them. Riku stepped back slowly. Greater than, you're not Toru anymore, are you? Toru tilted his head, his eyes now completely black. The child's voice echoed through his throat. Greater than, when my blood flows, the village wakes. When the bell tolls, you must stay. The floor shook violently. The flashlight fell and shattered, plunging the room into darkness. From beneath the tatami, white hands began to push through the wood, grasping their ankles, pulling them toward the ground. Riku dragged Hana out through the doorway. But when he looked back, Toru was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by dozens of figures in white kimonos, hands clasped in prayer, whispering together, Greater than, blessed be the child of the mountain. Then, all at once, they bowed, and a fountain of black blood burst toward the ceiling. Outside, the mist had turned dark red. The bell tolled again, deeper now, echoing like thunder from beneath the earth. Hana clutched Riku's hand. Greater than, he's gone. Toru's gone. From the distance, a voice, calm, familiar, and cold, floated through the air. Greater than, the ritual is not finished. The last blood must be offered. Chapter 9. The Disappearance of Toru. A cold wind swept through the village. The smell of smoke, blood, and ashes mingled in the mist, sweet and sharp, like burnt incense. Riku and Hana ran until their legs gave out. When the bell finally fell silent, they stopped under a dead cherry tree, gasping for breath, their faces streaked with tears and sweat. Hana's voice cracked. Greater than, Toru, he's still there. Riku said nothing. He knew, whatever was inside that body wasn't Toru anymore. The sky stayed dim, caught between night and dawn. The fog was so thick it swallowed all sound. Now and then, faint shapes moved within it, silhouettes that looked almost human. Some even had Toru's outline. Riku's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. No signal. But in the gallery, a new video had appeared, the last thing Toru had filmed before they ran. He pressed play. Videocam video file. Toru_0137 AM. The camera wobbled violently. Toru's voice was breathless, trembling. Greater than, if anyone finds this, don't trust the maps. Don't trust the bells. The girl isn't evil, she's trapped. The sacrifice never ended, because the living keep coming back. Behind him, there was the sound of water dripping, slow, rhythmic. Then, faint laughter, the voice of a child. The camera turned. Down the corridor, dozens of shadowy figures sat in rows on the floor. Their heads bowed, hands clasped as if praying. Their lips moved in unison, whispering, "Greater than, stay with us." Toru spun around. At the end of the hall stood the woman in the white kimono. She smiled. The camera fell. The footage trembled for a few seconds, then went black. Riku closed the phone, his hands slick with sweat. He grabbed Hana's wrist. Greater than, we have to go. Now, before it finds us too. They followed the narrow trail through the fog until it opened onto a small wooden bridge. The same bridge they had crossed when entering the village. But beneath it, there was no river anymore. Only a vast, dark emptiness, endless and silent. Riku threw a stone into it. No splash. No sound. Only a breath rising from the depths. And a voice that sounded exactly like Toru's. Greater than, it's cold here, stay with me. Hana trembled, tears glistening. Greater than, Riku, he's not dead. He's trapped between worlds. Riku gritted his teeth. Greater than, then we can't help him. If we stay, we'll be trapped too. He took her hand, stepping onto the bridge. But Hana froze. Greater than, wait, do you hear that? The bell began to toll again. Faint at first, then clearer. Distorted, echoing from deep beneath the ground. The whole village lit up at once. Every window burned with a yellow glow. In the distance, a single figure was walking toward them. Riku held his breath. The fog parted, and there he was. Toru. His clothes drenched in black, his eyes hollow. Yet he smiled softly, as if nothing had happened. He raised a trembling hand. Greater than, Riku, Hana, it's all right now. She forgave us. We can stay. Hana sobbed and almost ran to him. But Riku pulled her back, shouting, Greater than, that's not Toru. Look at his feet. Beneath Toru, no shadow. Toru's smile widened. Greater than, shadows are for those who still walk in sunlight. There is no dawn here. He took another step forward. A red string fell from his sleeve, the same one that hung the great bell. When it touched the ground, it began to crawl like a living snake, wrapping around Hana's ankle. She screamed. The cord tightened, cutting into her skin, drawing blood. Bright red turning black. Greater than, Riku, don't let it take me. Toru's voice was gentle, almost kind. Greater than, one must remain. The ritual needs the blood of the one who remembers the way back. Dash dash dash. Riku grabbed his knife and slashed the cord. It snapped with a hiss, spraying black liquid. He pulled Hana free and fell backward. When they looked up, Toru was gone. Only a trail of black water remained on the ground, leading toward the bridge, and disappearing into the endless darkness below. Far away, the bell rang once more. The sixth toll. Chapter 10. The call from the past. The sixth bell faded into silence. What followed wasn't peace, it was the kind of stillness that feels like being watched. Hana clutched her wounded leg, blood soaking through her torn jeans. Riku tore his sleeve, bandaged it tightly. They sat beneath the dead cherry tree, back to back, trying to catch their breath, though the air itself felt too heavy to breathe. Above them, the sky remained gray. The same gray as before. As if time had stopped at the moment the bell first rang. Greater than, Riku, Hana whispered. I saw Toru in my dream. He was standing in the village square, holding your map. And behind him, everyone was calling your name. Not mine. Not his. Just Riku Aizawa. Riku froze. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old folded map. The paper had darkened, the ink fading in places. But now, new words were bleeding through in fresh red ink. Greater than, Riku Aizawa, blood of the betrayer. Dash dash dash. Hana's eyes widened. Greater than, you're from this village? Riku nodded slowly, his voice rough. Greater than, my great-grandfather was a priest here, Aizawa Ren. He escaped the night the ritual failed. He took the original map and ran, leaving everyone else to die. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the paper. Greater than, they say his bloodline was cursed. That every generation, one descendant would hear the bell and be called back. As he spoke, the red ink on the map began to spread like veins, linking the mountain paths and forests together, until the entire map pulsed faintly, as if it were alive. Then came a whisper, deep, ancient, echoing from within his skull. Greater than, at last, you've returned, Aizawa. Dash dash dash. The ground trembled. The gray sky darkened into crimson. Wind tore through the trees, howling with the sound of hundreds of voices overlapping in agony. Hana clamped her hands over her ears. Greater than, they're calling your name again. I can hear them. Riku collapsed to his knees, clutching the map to his chest. Through the storm of sound, one voice rose above the rest. A man's voice, weary and broken. Greater than, forgive me. My blood has come full circle. Riku lifted his head. Before his eyes, the world blurred, and suddenly he was standing somewhere else. Dash dash dash. The village, but alive. The houses unbroken, people bustling, smoke rising from chimneys. Children laughed, bells rang in celebration. And standing before him was a man who looked exactly like him. Only older, dressed in a white priest's robe. The man turned, eyes tired, voice low. Greater than, if I sacrifice the girl, the gods will spare the village. If I don't, the village will vanish. Tell me, what would you choose? Riku stammered. Greater than, who are you? The man smiled sadly. Greater than, Aizawa Ren. The one who ran. Ren held out the same map. Pristine, unburned, with the red mark freshly drawn. Greater than, I thought I could break the curse by leaving. But the curse followed my blood. It waited for you. Blood began to seep from Ren's eyes. Greater than, you can end it. Riku. You must finish what I could not. Dash dash dash. The vision shattered. Riku fell back into the dirt, gasping. Hana was shaking him, eyes wide. Greater than, you were gone for 5 minutes. You weren't breathing, and your eyes, they were bleeding. He blinked, dazed. The map in his hands was now completely blank, save for one line written in what looked like fresh blood. Greater than, choose, return the blood, or let the night live forever. Dash dash dash. The bell tolled again, deep, heavy, from under the earth. Hana screamed. Greater than, Riku, don't listen, we can just leave. But Riku stared past her, toward the heart of the village. There, the shrine stood once more, glowing faintly through the mist. And in front of it, the woman in white awaited him. Her face calm, her voice like the wind whispering through bones. Greater than, your blood will ring the final bell. Chapter 11. The gate that leads nowhere. They ran again. Through the crooked streets, past the ghostly houses. The world around them looping like a broken reel of film. No matter how far they went, the fog never thinned. Hannah stumbled over a stone, nearly falling. Greater than, there has to be a way out. Riku, there has to. Riku didn't answer. He just kept walking, clutching the blank map. Its surface was warm, pulsing faintly under his fingers, like skin. Finally, they came upon a red torii gate in the middle of the woods. The kanji carved across the beam were faded, but still visible. Chuko exit. Hannah's eyes lit with desperate hope. Greater than, Riku, maybe this is it, the way out. They clasped hands and stepped through. On the other side, the air was colder, quieter. For a moment, Hannah thought she could hear water running. Perhaps a river, or the sound of the world returning to normal. They followed the narrow slope downhill. But as the fog parted, they froze. Below them stood the same village. The same dead cherry tree. The same houses. The same still, gray sky. And from far away, the bell rang, the seventh toll. Greater than, no, Hannah whispered. No, we walked straight through. It's impossible. Riku turned around. The torii gate still stood behind them, but the inscription had changed. Now, the wood was etched with new words. Fresh and bleeding. Greater than, Modore go back. He stepped toward it again, defiant. But when he crossed the threshold, he came out in the same place. Again. And again. Every path led back to the same village square. Time dissolved. The gray sky didn't brighten, didn't darken. The hands on Riku's watch had stopped. Greater than, time isn't moving, he murmured. It's not just the village that's trapped, it's us. Hannah sank to her knees, sobbing. Greater than, if we can't leave, does that mean we're already dead? Riku shook his head. Greater than, no. We're remembering something the world has forgotten. Then came the sound, soft at first, like tapping wood. Talk. The sound of a wooden mallet striking slowly, rhythmically. It grew louder, closer, followed by a voice chanting, low, mournful, ancient. Greater than, the blood of the betrayer must join with the blood of the child. When the two unite, the dawn will never come. From behind the trees, a procession appeared. Figures dressed in white, faces hidden behind featureless masks. Each holding a lantern that glowed dimly through the fog. At the front walked the woman in the white kimono. Her eyes black and bottomless. She looked straight at Riku. Greater than, you cannot leave. Aizawa. Riku's voice was hoarse. Greater than, I'm not part of you. I didn't cause this. Her expression didn't change. Greater than, your blood remembers. You live because we died. Now your blood must return. Hannah grabbed Riku's arm. Greater than, we have to run. They turned and sprinted through the trees. But every path they took curved back upon itself. The landscape folded like paper, twisting, turning, until they found themselves standing beneath the same torii gate. This time, new words had been carved into the beam. The wood splintered, as if clawed by hand. Greater than, Deguji Nato, Saishokarana, there was never an exit. Riku dropped to his knees, slamming his fists into the dirt. Greater than, if there's no exit, I'll make one. He drew his knife and slashed his palm. Blood spattered onto the ground. The soil trembled, as though it were drinking. The bell rang again, the eighth toll, deep and resonant, like laughter rising from the earth itself. Hannah screamed. Greater than, Riku, stop, you're waking it up. But it was too late. The red torii melted, its shape twisting into a gaping mouth. Black inside, teeth like splinters lining its edges. From within that darkness came a voice, slow, deep, echoing like 1,000 whispers fused together. Greater than, there will be no dawn. Chapter 12, the third bell. The ground trembled. The entire village groaned like old bones breaking. Walls cracked, rooftops caved in. And through it all, the bell kept tolling. Slow, heavy, endless, like the heartbeat of something buried beneath the earth. Riku and Hana tumbled down a slope, hitting hard ground. When Riku opened his eyes, they were in a vast underground chamber, lit by hundreds of red paper lanterns that swayed without wind. All around them, carved into the rock walls, were names, thousands of them. Every name ended the same way. Aizawa. Hana whispered. Greater than, is this where they buried the villagers? A voice answered from the darkness. Greater than, no. This is where we were kept. From the far end of the chamber, the woman in the white kimono stepped forward. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with something beyond anger, sorrow, perhaps, or eternity. Greater than, I am Shiori, she said softly. The mother who offered her child to the gods. That night, I rang the third bell. Not to call upon the divine, but to beg that my daughter would never be forgotten. She knelt before a small wooden table. On it rested a bronze handbell, smaller than the one outside. Beside it was a faded photograph. A man and a little girl smiling together. The man looked exactly like Riku. Riku's voice trembled. Greater than, that's my great-grandfather, Aizawa Ren. Shiori nodded. Greater than, he ran away. He left me and our daughter behind. So I cursed his blood, to remember what he chose to forget. She placed the bell into Riku's shaking hands. Greater than, your blood began this. Your blood must end it. The bell quivered in his grip. Its surface warm, as if alive. When it rang, even faintly, the walls of the chamber seemed to breathe. Hana clutched Riku's arm. Greater than, if you ring it, you'll die. Shiori's eyes shimmered with dark tears. Greater than, no. He won't die. He'll become part of us. And the village will finally sleep. Riku sank to his knees. Greater than, if that's true, why me? Greater than, because you remembered the way back. Shiori whispered. Memory keeps the curse alive. Only forgetting can bring dawn. The bell began to hum in Riku's hands, vibrating like a heartbeat. He felt the ground shake. Heard the voices of the dead, thousands of them. All whispering one word. Greater than, ring it. Hana cried. Greater than, Riku. No, please, there has to be another way. He looked at her, tears in his eyes but smiling faintly. Greater than, if I don't, we'll never leave. None of them will. He turned to Shiori. Greater than, when I ring it, what happens? Greater than, the blood will return to the earth, she said. And the night will end. Riku closed his eyes. Greater than, I'm sorry. Hana. Tell Toru I kept my promise. Tell him, I remembered the way home. He lifted the bell. It rang, once, twice, a third time. The sound was pure, too pure. Like light breaking through water. Like something ancient exhaling for the first time in centuries. All the lanterns went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then, from within that void, a red light bloomed, spreading outward, dissolving everything, walls, floor, flesh. Hana screamed, reaching for him. But Riku was already turning to dust. His outline glowing faintly as he smiled at her one last time. Greater than, the dawn will come, he whispered. Then he was gone. When Hana opened her eyes again, she was standing alone beside a river in the forests of Hida. The sky was bright with morning light. Birdsong filled the air. No mist, no bells, no village. Only sunlight and silence. Floating down the river was the old map, its ink fading as it drifted away. As it turned, Hana could barely make out the final words written across it in Riku's handwriting. Greater than, don't look for the village. Chapter 13. The Truth Behind the Disappearance. The sun rose, but it brought no warmth. Morning light spilled across the Hida Mountains. Pale and colorless, Hannah stood by the riverbank, trembling, her clothes still damp with fog that no longer existed. The forest around her was empty. No trace of houses, bridges, or bells. No footprints. No sound. Only a red string clinging to her wrist. Dry now, crusted with what looked like old blood. 2 days later, hikers found her wandering along Route Gifu 47. She was barefoot, dehydrated, and in shock. When police questioned her, she spoke in fragments. A map, a bridge, a lost village, the sound of bells. She was taken to a hospital in Nagoya. When she finally woke, the detectives asked for names. Hannah said clearly, "Greater than Riku Aizawa, Toru Mishima. We were there together." The officers exchanged looks. One of them flipped through his notebook, shaking his head. "Greater than, there's no record of either name at Nagoya University. No missing persons reported. Are you sure they were real?" Hannah's breath caught. "Greater than, of course they were real. I have photos." She grabbed her phone from the bedside drawer. Every image that once showed Riku and Toru was gone. Only empty forests, fog, and blank frames remained. In a few of them, faint outlines lingered. Shapes of people who were never there. Later that night, Hannah retrieved Toru's old video camera. The only thing police had recovered from her belongings. There was just one file. The bridge 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. The screen was black. Then, a line of red text appeared. Greater than, when one leaves, the village replaces them with a memory. Hannah's pulse quickened. She fast-forwarded. At the very end, the camera showed 3 people standing before a red bridge. A young man, another with a camera, and a smiling woman. Hannah recognized herself instantly. The 2 men beside her were Riku and Toru. Her recorded voice laughed faintly. Greater than, September 15th, Yurei Village Expedition. If someone finds this footage, that means we've. The video cut off. Hannah fell to her knees. The nurses rushed in, but she didn't respond. In her mind, she could hear the faint tolling of a bell. Distant and deep. Echoing like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. That night, she slipped out of the hospital. The streets were silent, the city lights hazy through the fog. She walked for hours, until she found herself in front of Nagoya University's library. Inside, she combed through the archives. No record of Riku Aizawa. No Toru Mishima. No report of a missing expedition in Gifu. But in the restricted section, she discovered a worn folder dated 1923, titled, Greater than, Investigation Report, the Yurei-mura Tragedy. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The first page read, Greater than, Village sealed after mass immolation. 78 confirmed dead. Sole survivor, Shiori Aizawa, 28, village priestess. She turned to the last page, where a note had been added in blue ink, dated 1972. Greater than, the curse of Yurei-mura persists. Every few years, outsiders appear carrying the original map. None return. Map archived under Department of Archaeology. File number 47. Hannah ran to the storage room. Among countless documents and relics, she found it. A fragile map encased in a plastic sleeve. The ink was faint, but legible. At the top corner was written, Greater than, Aizawa Ren, 1923. And next to the small red mark that denoted the village, 3 new names had been added in fresh red ink. Greater than Riku Aizawa. Toru Mishima. Hannah Takeda. Her knees gave out. The overhead lights flickered. In the glass display case, something moved. A hand, pale and wet, pressed against the inside of the glass from within the sealed case, leaving a trail of dripping water. The bell chimed, soft, close. This time, Hannah didn't turn. She didn't need to. She already knew where it came from. It was ringing right behind her. Chapter 14. The Last of the Village. The archive room was silent again. The sound of the bell faded, leaving behind only the hum of fluorescent lights. Hannah stood frozen before the display case. Inside, the wet handprint began to vanish, as if absorbed into the glass. Her reflection stared back at her. But it wasn't her. The reflection was smiling. "Greater than, you came back," it whispered. The voice echoed not through the room, but inside her chest. She stepped backward, trembling, but her feet felt heavy, as if the floor itself clung to her. The lights flickered once, then went out. Dash dash dash. Darkness swallowed everything. The air turned cold and wet, smelling faintly of earth and incense. Hundreds of voices murmured all around her, layered upon one another, soft, pleading, sorrowful. "Greater than, the blood has returned. The bell will ring again. Only one soul must remain." From the shelves, the old maps fell one by one. Pages fluttered through the air like dying moths. Each one bore a single name. People who had vanished into the curse. As the last sheet touched the floor, a faint light began to glow beneath her feet, revealing a red circle of ritual markings. In the center, her own name appeared. "Greater than, Takeda Hannah." Dash dash dash. The ground trembled softly. When she blinked, she was no longer in the archive. She stood in the middle of a mist-covered forest, surrounded by glowing lanterns. Ahead of her, beyond the drifting fog, the lost village of Yurei-mura stood whole once more, its roofs glistening in the moonlight, its lights warm and welcoming. Figures moved within the glow. Familiar faces. Toru, Riku, the woman in white, the little girl from the altar. They all turned toward her, smiling. "Greater than, welcome home, Hannah." Dash dash dash. Hannah shook her head, tears streaming. "Greater than, no, this isn't home. You're all dead." The woman in the white kimono approached. Her eyes were soft now, almost kind. "Greater than, dead? No, my child. We are the ones who remember. The world has forgotten us. So we remain, here." She placed a cold hand against Hannah's cheek. "Greater than, you belong to the blood of the mountain now. You are the keeper of memory." Dash dash dash. A warm wind stirred. The sky shimmered. In the distance, a great bronze bell hung above the village gate, its rope glowing faintly red. "Greater than, when the bell rings again," said the woman, "you will guide those who wander here. You will greet them, and when they turn away, you will smile." Hannah's voice broke. "Greater than, I don't want this." The woman's expression was filled with sorrow. "Greater than, neither did I." Dash dash dash. The world began to dissolve around her. The mist swallowed her feet, her hands, her voice. When she looked into the mirror of the river beside her, she saw herself, but dressed in a white kimono. Eyes dark and endless, hair loose and heavy with rain. Her reflection whispered softly, "Greater than, you can't escape memory. You are the last of the village." The image reached out, and a pale hand broke the surface of the water, grasping hers and pulling her in. Dash dash dash. When she opened her eyes again, she was kneeling before an altar inside the shrine. In front of her stood the great bronze bell. Its surface was wet with condensation, or tears. Outside, the voices of children laughed faintly, and the air smelled of rain and earth. She lifted the mallet. The wood was warm. A single, sorrowful chime echoed through the valley. Dash dash dash. By dawn, the mist had returned. The village glowed faintly, alive once more. And above the gate, a new wooden sign swayed gently in the wind. "Greater than, guardian of the village, Takeda Hannah." Chapter 15. The village vanishes again. 3 months later, snow blanketed the mountains of Hida. A research team from Gifu Prefecture hiked into the forest to conduct a geological survey. Their report mentioned nothing unusual. Only one small note, written in the margin. "Greater than, strange. Evidence of foundations here. But no debris." No ruins, as if a whole settlement once stood, then vanished completely. That same week, at the library of Nagoya University, a curator discovered an unregistered notebook inside a broken drawer. Its cover was cracked, its pages yellowed. The name on the first page read, "Greater than Riku Aizawa, Field Notes." The staff logged it for preservation. But when they returned later that afternoon, the notebook was gone. Days later, a local news site ran a small article under unexplained sightings. Greater than, traveler claims to have met a young woman wearing a white kimono on an old forest road in Gifu. She handed him a map and whispered, "Don't look back," before vanishing into the mist. A photo of the map accompanied the report. At its center was a faint red mark labeled Kun, village, crossed out with black ink. In the lower corner, in thin handwriting, were the words, "Greater than, if you find the village, don't turn around." That night, the first snow fell heavily. Deep within the forest, a soft bell rang. Not loud, but clear enough to travel through the trees. Beneath the pale moonlight, a village appeared. Lanterns glowed warmly behind paper doors. Children's laughter echoed faintly. At the gate, a wooden sign swayed gently in the wind. Greater than, guardian of the village, Takeda Hana. By morning, the village was gone. Only a narrow wooden bridge remained. Its planks half rotted, spanning a silent stream. On its railing, faintly carved by hand, were words worn smooth by time and snow. Greater than, it was never the village that disappeared from the map. It was the map that was erased from the village. Sometimes, travelers say that when the fog thickens in the Hida forest, they can hear 3 soft chimes echoing far away. Locals no longer go near that place. They call it, quietly and with respect, greater than Yurei-mura, the village that doesn't exist. They say Yurei-mura no longer exists. That it was erased from every map, every record, every memory. But those who wander the Hida forests know the truth. The village still remembers. When the mist rises, and the air tastes of rust and rain, you might see a bridge no one else sees, and a woman in a white kimono waiting at its gate. She will smile softly and whisper, "Greater than, welcome home." Then the bell will ring 3 times, and the map in your hand will show a place that never was.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.